thank you and welcome you to TNN's Facebook Live one-on-one State of Affairs with His Excellency the Governor. The first time I've had the opportunity to sit down and conversate with you. Welcome to Bermuda.
Thank you very much. Good to meet you.
How you finding it? 9 months you've been here. How are you finding it?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's a big job. It's what I wanted. I think I've got a good background to do the job, and I'm really, enjoying the role and meeting people and getting out about. So yeah, it's been a busy 9 months.
Let's just jump right into it.
Sure.
Before coming to Bermuda, what did you think and what did you hear? And what would you consider would be your greatest challenge coming to Bermuda?
Sure. Well, a few parts of that. I on reflection, I think there's a lot of ignorance out there in terms of what Bermuda is and what it does. I've been in the Foreign Office and previously the Navy. I travelled a lot. I think I know quite a lot about international affairs, what states do, territories and the like. And I'd even worked on some issues relevant to Bermuda, but I didn't really understand this place until I got here. In a good way, there's so much more going on here. Not just, the beauty of the islands and the tourism side, but what it has to offer in terms of a place to do business, place to live and work more generally. And it was a real pleasant surprise to see just how much you can pack in to 21 square miles. It's really very, very impressive. So that was a surprise. And I think part of, my job to the extent I can is to get the message out there as well. Obviously, you've got the Bermuda Tourism Authority doing its job, but any opportunity to promote this place and what it has to offer, I think is something I'm keen to do. And it's actually very easy to do that because it does sell itself when you just explain what this place is all about. Challenges. Yeah, I mean, you'll always get challenges across the board. As every country in the world has its challenges, and this place has them too. Some of them are for the government, quite clearly, the elected government to do, and the areas that fall under my responsibility, I'm sure we'll get onto those in the questions, in terms of particularly security and police. Those challenges change over time and the response to them. And that I knew about when I came into this job, and obviously it's something that I'm trying to work closely to understand some of the issues. I mean, you've lived here, others lived here all their lives. You understand how these things come about, the root causes and the history to it. And I've got a job of getting up to speed with that as quickly as possible to see what contribution I can make.
I'm going to commend you for taking charge of the gun and gang violence we've had over 23 years. And you are the first that's literally looking to challenge, discourage that we have. So good stuff.
Thank you.
So what prompted you to even bring this to the fore?
Sure. Well, actually, before I answer that, I'd like to, maybe it's a bit of thanking you back. I've read a lot of what you've written on this area as well. And it's really useful analysis. So thank you for your contribution to this as well and coverage. So in terms of what I bring, I mean, I take the responsibilities I've been given seriously. I mean, as a lawyer, I read the Constitution. I don't take the responsibilities lightly. So when people say, why are you being active in the area of security and policing, it's my job. And so obviously in partnership, the governors historically now don't operate in a vacuum or a bubble. It's always about partnership with the police, the ministry, the government, the premier, the communities. Everyone has a part in this, but the governor and that linkage with the United Kingdom as well in terms of their overarching responsibilities of defence and national security, and I can provide a link into that. So partly I think it is what my job is about. I think my background is I have worked in similar spaces before. I'm a lawyer originally. I did a lot of defence and prosecution in the Navy actually. Okay. if you've ever worked with sailors, you'll know they can get up to all kinds of trouble. So I learned a lot in doing that. And partly you learn particularly in the Navy, was a boom ground. You start with people, you talk to people, you understand what the issues are. And so in my first 9 months, I've been very keen to get out and talk to as many people from different communities as possible. Doesn't mean I have to agree with everything they say, but I think it's really important to listen. So in I think describe this kind of national conversation about it, and things like the town hall have a role to play in that. Is, we don't have a monopoly. The police ministries, the Premier, don't have a monopoly on good ideas and how things can be done better. So it's about having those conversations and engaging people who understand the issues and what they've got to contribute. And I think I want to listen to that and be part of it. I don't think I've got all the solutions. But
no one does.
No one does, right?
Sure.
But you can be part of it and contribute towards it, and that's what I'm keen to do.
Sure. I want you to mention, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
What do you think the state of Bermuda's drug and firearm crisis? You consider this to be a crisis? That was a crisis.
Yeah. So a lot of these things, crisis is always a kind of, a word that kind of has connotations of out of control. There is clearly an issue of illegal drugs use, in Bermuda, as there is elsewhere. It's not, different to many other nations. Firearms, again, is a problem, as is in some ways the use of knives. Is, if you look at the statistics, and I think the Commissioner did that at the town hall, for those who didn't see it, it's worth looking at in terms of the use of, knives are easy to get, right? They're in your kitchen, but people going out prepared to carry them and use them is also a very big problem, which I'm concerned about. So I think you look at the understanding the interrelationships between, drugs use, drugs trade, who's benefiting from it, how is that affecting behavior? Is the resultant kind of inter-gang rivalry, how much is connected to the drugs trade or other issues? But certainly the general, position is, organised drug trade is a problem everywhere, and often it leads to other kind of problems, antisocial behaviour issues that flow from drugs. Those with drug disorders, and that of course feeds that problem, and obviously those making money at it and how they protect that business. I don't think it's all the problem, but often, obviously we've seen drugs come imported. What do they come along with? Firearms and money. So these things have definitely got a connection, and so tackling one will tackle the other, maybe not completely, but to a large extent. So I think part of the response has to be to deal with those engaged in kind of illicit drug trafficking, the trade.
I was impressed. You spoke about, let's talk about the town hall meeting, and the Commissioner stated that he spoke of 43. As a matter of fact, he said 80.
Yeah.
80, 88, something like that, firearms.
Yes.
At one point were on the streets. 43 they have taken off the streets, and there's another 43 on the streets. Back in the 2010, 2008, I think it was about 10 firearms, and about 6 of them were being shared around. So you see that the importation of firearms has increased, and that's due to part of the sale of $10,000.
Yeah.
How do we stop that? How do we get a handle of that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, those statistics are interesting in and of themselves, and it's worrying that there's any firearms here illegal. There are some countries that if you gave those numbers, they would be delighted by that level. I mean, there's when guns are just out of control. But any illegal firearm is a problem. As you say, over half have been seized, and in fact, literally the week beforehand, I think as the Commissioner said, they seized another 2.
Yes, sir.
So how do you deal with that? Well, firstly, you need to make sure your borders are as secure as possible. It's not easy, but Bermuda, because of its geography, is better placed than many in terms of being able to police its borders, search those. I mean, you're not going to rip up every single boat that arrives or every kind of piece of luggage, but some of it will be intelligence driven. Others will be, increased resources, technology to make sure that you make it as difficult as possible. And obviously there are techniques, as the collector of customs and their team will know, how people try to get around these things, breaking things down, sending in parts and to be assembled later. But I think generally the picture that I've received is there's a limited number. We've seen some weapons are passed around, so which indicates there's not a huge number being used. There may be more out there than that number. I think that's the number that they know of. So you probably can assume there might be some others in the territory, which is a problem. I think the other point then is what those that are here, to make sure that where you've got intelligence and information that the police can act on it and they can search. And I've been very much encouraging them to use their powers to the fullest extent possible in searching and disrupting those who are known to be associated with this. We can get onto the kind of the resources you need to do that, and that has to come with it to make it sustainable. But I'm not keen on a couple of weeks of intense activity. I mean, it's got to be sustained activity that takes number and resources. Use of technology as well, I think it can enhance that. But also, if you're at the town hall, very much encourage the communities to speak up. I think it's really, really important because the police rely on information in order to act. If they go to a judge to get a search warrant to search premises, they need to rely on some information. And the more information they have, the more they can exercise those powers and tackle those in the community that people want tackled. Because I think a lot of people are kind of living in silence or, and probably fearful of saying something. But, if nobody says anything, it's really difficult to tackle it. I'm not underestimating how difficult it is, but silence is a problem in and of itself. Of course, one of the things, whatever your motivation might be to clean up the streets or for a reward, and you'll see the Crime Stoppers reward has gone up for $5,000 to $50,000. I mean, that flowed from a conversation as, would it make a difference? If you up the reward, and even if the motivation's money,
most definitely,
then let's do it. And that money can be available for those leading to a seizure of a firearm, up to $50,000. That's a significant sum of money. So I'm hoping that if that message gets out and those that know where these things are,
let's get know.
There you go. Pass it on to Crime Stoppers. And obviously that's it's a link into the police, but not a direct link. And in a way that, action can be taken. So I think whatever we can do to do that. So information, collective effort. And obviously if people know of ways firearms are getting in, pass that information on, to try and plug those gaps. Because it is always really difficult. I mean, policing customs border is a challenge. It's not easy because of the number of visitors and ways that people get in, but you can target it and do it as much as possible. I don't know exactly, we'll get on to maybe the Governor's Council, but that was one of the conversations. What more could be done to secure the borders?
The Commissioner also spoke about 43 unsolved murders.
Yeah.
Through your, I guess I would say your involvement, bringing in UK specialists in solving detectives, 6 months I heard of.
Yeah.
You think that's going to be long enough?
So that essentially was the kind of initial preliminary offer of 6 months. It doesn't mean it can't be extended.
Okay.
And there'll be a conversation on funding in and around that. So partly that was around personnel and equipment. And I think that those officers are not just directed at the unsolved, what you might call cold cases, but live investigations and one coming forward. And just to reassure people, this is not about, this is the full-time solution. The solution is getting the BPS up to the strength with all the capacity and capability it needs to do its job. That will take time. And this is essentially how do you get that temporary expertise to help deal with things now, because there obviously are problems in that. I think the unsolved case, early on, I tour around a lot, speak to a lot of people, and I went in and spoke to the unit that deals with unsolved cases. And, the commissioner talks of the challenge in terms of the number of officers he has available to progress those inquiries and investigations. But in certain cases, they know of individuals, and I think I might have mentioned this before, who know relevant information about those cases, but are fearful of coming forward and giving evidence in a way that can be used in a court of law to bring someone to justice. And I think, we need to look at what ways there are legislatively and otherwise that can be looked at by government to reduce and mitigate the risk to those individuals, so they feel confident they can come forward and help bring those people to justice and the families to get relief. As you know, these things are no doubt, I'm fortunate I haven't suffered that in my family, but for those who have, these things, often a daily reminder, even though they might be many, many years ago. So anything can be done to give them some kind of relief and justice, I think needs to be looked at.
Any thought of protection laws to help with these individuals that might want to come forward?
Yeah, so there's already existing things like witness protection schemes and the like. The thing I've kind of asked about whether it can be looked at is some kind of witness anonymity orders, whereby they have got lots of precedents elsewhere, but it gives judicially authorised, this is not for the prosecutor or the defence, but judges can, provide some measures in proceedings to protect identities of witnesses, so they can feel they can give evidence freely, in court, under special circumstances if they're genuinely fearful for their lives and health or their families, so they can allow them to give evidence. And obviously the court can look at how that can be done safely while protecting fair trial rights as well. I think it can be done, and it's worth looking at.
Governor's Council. Councillor, you brought a network of individuals. Tell us, what is the primary objective of the Governor's Council?
Sure. So, it's a constitutional mechanism that it recognises that there's certain responsibilities for the governor: police, internal security, external affairs, and defence. And when those matters, would benefit from conversations with government in a more formal sense. Obviously we do talk about these things. The governor can bring a council together at his or her own instigation or at the request of the Premier. And then essentially the Premier's in there with up to 2 or 3 ministers, and then others can be brought along for the purpose of what the discussion is. So we had the Premier and several ministers, Commissioner of the Police, Director of Public Prosecution, Deputy Commissioner, and the Collector of Customs. And there were two meetings we've had so far, specifically on gun and gang violence, and able to be led by the operational briefings from those 3 authorities, for information sharing, but more importantly, direction about, if there are issues, what can be done about those. Some might be for those authorities to be given a direction on in terms of a steer or support. Others might be about resourcing, and you've heard the Premier being very clear, the resources will be made available as necessary to deal with the problem. So kind of resources are not the problem here in terms of supporting those agencies, subject obviously to those measures thereafter being the right things to do. And as you've seen, immediately increasing pace of recruitment. We've looked at the officers coming from overseas, equipment procurement. I can't go into details, but it's widespread and will make a difference. And a number of other kind of measures as well to look at it. I think the other big issue, and it came up in the town hall, if I can mention, is clearly the policing and the prosecuting angle is at one end of the spectrum. We all know the solution is not at that end. The solution is dealing with not the symptoms, but the cause. And that's about looking at how do you prevent individuals that are moving into this violence from, giving them choices and leading them away from it. And I thought the town hall was really good at hearing some of the ideas, that some programs that might have been used in the past and others to try and do that. So I think that's where the community can contribute suggestions on how best to do that together.
Economics is part of, or lack of, for a lot of individuals, our young black men that are challenged with able to find employment. How do you think we might fix that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, right? There is wealth inequality here. I mean, everyone can see that.
Yes,
it's not
sir.
a kind of, it's it's not doubted. And you have that in many societies as well. And of course, those generating wealth for the economy are really important, because without that wealth being generated into the economy of the country, where's the money coming from to pay the police and the other things that you need to deal with the problem? So it's about, you need to encourage business and others to generate wealth and have economic well-being. So that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But quite right, the other end is, how do you bring everyone along in that journey, and particularly those who feel disenfranchised or that's not for them or others? And that's a challenge. And I think partly this is, we're all born at a stage where some people have great opportunities and networks and family that can help them on that journey. Others don't. And, how do you help them realize there are alternatives? There is opportunities that for their livelihood in the future they just may not have even thought of, and encouraging them to make those choices. And that's about, supporting families, supporting schools, giving people vision. Now, you heard some of the comments at the town hall about vision, seeing what, the talent and the potential that they have, so that they make good choices, and supporting them in those choices. And that in itself is possible, because the numbers you're talking about when you come to Bermuda, you're not looking at a multi-million size population, right? The numbers is small.
Yes.
So if you're going to look at solutions, you'd want a population this size. It's all possible with the right level of approach, and, with agencies working together, ideas for these programs. Was it the ASHE program? I'd not heard of that before. That was great. These things, do they work? Can they be reinvented? Don't know. It's for others to look at in some ways. But I think that's the type of thing, is how do you do that? And one size won't fit all. So I recognise that, apprenticeship schemes can be brilliant. If people don't fulfil their diploma and qualifications, how do you help them later on when they make choices to break that path? And again, I think the correctional facilities for those that have been incarcerated, go through Westgate and others, is the rehabilitation working? Because,
used to. We need to have more programs that help. Violent offenders class, anger management classes.
Yeah.
These things help individuals to think first before you
exactly. And I think
activate.
That's people, you talk about, you need, lock these people up, yes, it's punitive, it's a deterrent, but they are going to be released at some point.
That's right.
And it's good to try and get them in a state when these individuals are given every opportunity not to go back to what they just left beforehand, but to make good choices.
Yes, sir.
And that takes support and help. And actually, I visited all the facilities, including Westgate, and you saw that, I think there's an appetite from most of the inmates to engage in those programs. And frankly, those that do it and support going to prison do it, take my hat off to them. It's not easy work. Whether you're running the kind of carpentry shop or, the mechanic shop or these other programs, it's a difficult environment. So, commend people who do that. But it's really, really important work. So thank you to those people who are doing it. It's not easy.
My last question,
Sure.
We are on the clock, and the governor is extremely busy. A think tank. Any thought or consideration for a think tank? Bringing the brilliant minds under one umbrella, the young, the mature, the old, the police, or the other agencies, but our young people have to be involved. Those that are affiliated with some of this activity or no.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
So, we mentioned the kind of, within the kind of violence area in terms of doing, So, the ministry's has got the National Violence Reduction Strategy, and there are for those who read it, there are, and I think it is, Strategies Goes is a pretty good one. And there are elements in there which lend itself to those type of engagements across the board. And however you label them, think tanks or engagement sessions, I think they're absolutely critical, because you do need to engage everyone in this. Some are very difficult to engage, but you've got to try. And I think there's, as I say, no monopoly on good ideas from, whether it's the police or others. So those working in youth groups who understand what's going on, so yes, I think any kind of opportunity to bring people together with a vision to make things better and address these areas, I'd say yes, absolutely go for it. And how that's organised, because I think conversations like this, discussions, but with action, get the ideas and then act on it. So it's not just a think piece or a talking shop. It is only useful if it's going to deliver something, right? Is that they come up with the good ideas and somebody's there and is going to take them forward. So that's what they're good if somebody's going to do something with them.
I think what I'm trying to say is, wherever we go, let's not leave our young people out, because they are tomorrow.
So I agree with you. And I think someone was mentioned about, the videos they're watching, the music stuff, inciting it. And, that's not what I watch, right? It's probably not you watch either, unless you're doing research. So you've got to involve them to understand what is influencing their decisions and affecting their behavior. And that's probably them telling you, right? And people's kids will be able to tell you that. So yes, I think they've got to be engaged, because otherwise we don't really understand what's going. It's the same, parents never kind of really understand teenagers and stuff, right? You think you do.
I've got a 19-year-old girl training myself. So.
There you go. So I think yes, involve everyone, and however that's done.
Yeah, Excellency, Ms. Andrew Murdoch, I want to thank you for, as I said, my time is very much limited with the governor here today. I want to thank you for allowing me into your home and to sit down and have a discussion with you. And I'm looking for more of these discussions in the future.
Thank you. No, pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Yes, sir.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bless you.
Cheers.
We want to thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for other important conversations we will have. My name is Trevor Lindsay. Thank you.